Hello viewers, in this video I'm going to talk about the dielectric constant determination with the help of a capacitor charging discharging process. Let's consider the charging process of a capacitor and resistor circuit. So I'm going to draw this. We have a DC source of voltage V0 and we are going to connect it to a resistor R, and then it is going to connect with a capacitor with capacitance C. So this is going to form a closed circuit. This is the reference ground. And the capacitor's capacitance is what we call as C. Of course, this is going to be the positive polarity. This is the negative polarity. And when you try to start the circuit with the help of a key, and if you start at time t equal to 0 with capacitor's two ends shorted, so capacitor is initially discharged, and then when you press the key, the current is going to flow from this point till this when you close the switch, right? So in that case, that current is going to get accumulated on this capacitor plates as charge, and it is going to increase the voltage across the capacitor. So the voltage V across this capacitor, the voltage VC across the capacitor is going to be a function of time. And how does this voltage vary with time is given by the charging equation of the capacitor, which is given by Vc as a function of time is equal to V naught into 1 minus exponential of minus T by Rc. So this is the charging equation for capacitor, and here we define a parameter called time constant. So the time constant is given by R into C. The resistance R and capacitance C, the product is what you call as time constant. What is this time constant, and what is so special about this? So if you can check this by putting T equal to RC here in this expression, so T RC gets cancelled, e power minus 1, which is 1 by E. So 1 minus 1 by E. So when you put T is equal to RC here, it is going to give V as a function of time. I will call this as Vc is equal to V naught into 1 minus 1 by E. The moment when you put T equal to RC, this is getting cancelled and it is 1 by E. So 1 minus 1 by E, if you calculate, it is going to be 0.63 times V naught. It means this specific time constant is a time starting from 0 at which the voltage across the capacitor becomes 63%. 0.63 means 63% of the maximum voltage applied to it. So you are taking the capacitor, you are applying a maximum voltage of V0 DC. So this voltage is going to develop some voltage across the capacitor gradually, and the time taken by this particular capacitor resistor combination in order to reach the voltage of 63% of this V0 on the capacitor is what we call as time constant of the circuit, right? Similarly, we can define the time constant with the discharging process also. I'm going to raise. We can also derive an expression here for a time called T half. It is the time taken to charge to half of the applied voltage, which means we are applying V0 here. So at after how much time the Vc gets equal to V0 by 2, that time is what you call as T half. You can once again put it here in this expression. So V will become V0 by 2 is equal to V0 times 1 minus e power. We are going to call this as T half divided by, of course, minus sign RC. As we know, this is V0, it is gone, it is half, and this is 1. So this equation is going to be half is equal to 1 minus of exponential of this minus T half divided by RC. Or if you rearrange this, this half goes to the other side, which becomes half, exponent comes to this side. So I'm going to erase this portion. So the expression now takes the new form exponential of minus T half divided by RC is equal to 1 minus 1 by 2, which is half. Or if you just invert it, e power minus x is equal to 1 by 2, so e power x equal to 2. So exponential of minus, t half plus t half, I'm removing the negative sign, by RC is going to be just 2. Or if you apply natural logarithm on both sides, you're going to have t half is equal to RC into ln of 2. Ln of 2 is 0.693. So you can write this as 0.693 RC. So this is the expression for half time. And why we need this is because I want to have an expression for this capacitor C, and later I'll be using it for the determination of dielectric constant epsilon R. Please keep it aside. Now, if you recall the parallel plate capacitor, so if you draw a parallel plate capacitor whose plate, let me draw like this. These are identical parallel plates. The plates are actually separated by a distance of d, and each plate is having an area A. So the capacitance of this capacitor with air or vacuum as the dielectric mediums. You can see here these two plates are separated by some distance and nothing is there, means vacuum or air. So with air or vacuum, the capacitance C of this parallel plate capacitor is equal to epsilon 0 A divided by D. This is with air. But usually for electrolytic capacitors, they use some oxide layer as a sandwich between the anode plate and cathode plate. So that will act like a dielectric. So with some medium, the same capacitance is going to be epsilon R times of epsilon A divided by D. So the dielectric constant epsilon R of the material is going to enhance the capacitance by that many times. Okay, so this is the formula for C, and we can combine both of them. So in this case, I can write the same C as T half divided by 0.693 R. This is one portion. And the same C I can write as epsilon R epsilon 0 A divided by D. So these two C's are representing the same capacitance of the capacitor. So you can equate both of them. So I'll erase the top portion and I'll equate both of them. So I can write T half divided by 0.693 R is equal to epsilon R epsilon naught A times divided by D. This I want epsilon R. Epsilon R is going to be D times D T half divided by A epsilon naught, and the leftover terms are 0.693 R times 0.693, or you may write it as even ln of 2, right? So this is the formula for determination of dielectric constant of a material. So this we can easily determine by performing an experiment. Why? Because D and A are experimentally not measurable because we don't know what is the D and A, because it should be supplied by the manufacturer of this capacitor, and we depend on the data sheets provided over there. So DA are available from the Google, and the T half is what we are going to determine using the experiment. Epsilon naught is the free space permittivity, which is epsilon naught is equal to 8.85 into 10 power minus 12 farad per meter. 0.69 is a constant, and the R, the resistance used in the circuit, which is known to you. So R is known, D by A is available on the Google, and T half experimentally measurable, and hence finally you can get the value of this epsilon R in this experiment. So this is the theoretical part, theory behind the expression for this. And the next part is the discharging process. That also I'll explain. Please pause the video for this. I'm going to erase. Same thing, we are going to use a power supply for initially charging the capacitor. We have the same resistor and capacitor setup. Here, only one thing is different. Earlier we have connected here. Now we are going to connect it to ground. So the same resistor, same capacitor, and the voltage across the C, once again, we are going to study as a function of time. So initially what we do here is we'll just join it with a wire to this particular point. That is only to charge the capacitor. Initially we charge it. So the same V0 will appear over there, and the moment when you remove the wire, it is going to discharge through this resistor. And the discharging voltage as a function of time is given by V0 exponential of minus T by RC, the same time constant. So here also you can get the T half in the same manner. So when you put T equal to T half, you're going to have Vc is equal to V0 by 2. So just by plugging it here, once again we arrive at the same expression. This is V0 by 2 and this is V0. So V0 gets cancelled, and once again e power minus x is equal to 1 by 2 or e power x equal to 2. So same expression. Once again we'll get the same answer, right? So this is the discharging equation, and based on this you can sketch two graphs. So here also what we do is just like the previous one, we try to note down the voltage of the capacitor, voltage across the capacitor as a function of time, and in both charging and discharging we get the voltage versus time graph, right? So that graph, if we plot how it is going to be, let me show it here. This is the function of time. So this is V of t, V voltage across the capacitor. So if you draw this as V0, initially this is the midpoint. Initially the graph is going to rise in an exponential fashion, and ultimately after t equal to infinity this is going to touch the V0. It takes infinite time theoretically, and this is the charging process. Now the same capacitor with the same resistor, if you try to discharge, it is going to show the same exponential fall. This is going to be something like this, exponential fall. And these two curves will intersect at a specific point, and there if you draw up a perpendicular, it will touch the time axis. This is time t equal to 0, and this point is what you call as t half. So if you can measure the t half, same thing here, if you look at the voltage axis, it is going to be the half voltage V0 by 2, right? So this is the charging curve and this is the discharging curve. So the purpose of doing this experiment is only to get this t half, because in the previous formula which we have derived, t half is required. For the t half we need this. Okay, so if you know the t half, you know the d value, you know the a value, and you know the r which you are using. Epsilon naught constant is known. Just by substituting all of them, you can get the value of epsilon r, the dielectric constant of the capacitor. So this is the theory part behind it. The very first tool that is required for building any circuit is called this breadboard. So there are some holes on this breadboard which are intended for making electrical contacts. Let's have a look at this breadboard and its layout. We'll try to understand how the connections are made on this. Usually a breadboard will have two types of buses. One is called the vertical bus, another one is called the horizontal bus. If you take the total layout of this breadboard, you can divide it into several parts. There is a lower portion, there is an upper portion for this, and in between you have a groove, and all these holes in the middle are called vertical buses. So these are called vertical buses. It means if you plug in a wire or a contact here, then the remaining four holes, anywhere you can join the other contact. Let us say I want to join a wire with a resistor. A wire and resistors I want to join. So for that, I will insert the wire into one hole, and I'll insert the resistor into the other hole. And here you can use any of these five holes for inserting these two components. And if you have three components or wires joining at a particular point, then you can use the other hole. And up to five, you can use one particular vertical bus. So you can make five simultaneous contacts with a vertical bus. And remember, there are several holes and there is no demarcation that this is vertical, this is horizontal. All of them will be just holes. And you can understand that the middle ones, even same thing is applicable for the lower ones also. Five holes will be there. You may not even notice that they are five holes. Of course, vertically they are five, but there is no demarcation that these are vertically connected, these are horizontally connected. It is not there. But please keep in mind, this is a metal strip, this is another metal strip, this is another metal strip. Like that, there are several vertical metal strips. That's why these are called vertical buses. And same logic is applicable here. Here also vertical strips are there, metallic strips on the back side of this breadboard. So if you insert any wire, let us say here I have a bus. So if I insert anything into this particular hole, the remaining four holes will automatically come in contact with this, right? So these are vertically connected ones. These are vertical buses. And similarly, there are top buses which are called horizontal buses. There is a mark at the center. So you have horizontally connected buses. So two buses are there here. Another two more buses are there here. So for demarcation sake, I'll be calling this as A bus, B bus, C bus, D bus. So please try to observe that there are some holes even here also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like this. Similarly, here you have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And similarly, here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So please pay attention that these are connected only from here to here. So this is a metal strip. So if you put some wire here, until this point, all holes are in contact. And if you put some wire here, and if you want to join it by inserting some other thing here, there will not be any electrical contact. So it's broken. So this is independent, this is independent. And same thing, quite often you get confused that if you insert some wire here and if you insert another wire here, people may think that they are joined. No, this line and this line, they are independent. Please don't get confused. They are very close to each other. So please pay attention. The top horizontal bus is separate one. The lower horizontal bus is separate one. There is no contact among themselves. And same logic is applicable here. This is one bus, this is another bus. Actually, breadboard is interchangeable. You can twist this way, you can turn this way, that way. So all these are horizontal buses. Similarly, I can call E, F, G, H, etc. So the breadboard layout is like this. So if you want to make too many connections, then you should go for horizontal bus. If you want to make less number of connections at a particular point, then you can use the vertical buses. Similarly, if you have integrated circuits or any let's say prototyping boards, you can use this breadboard for making several connections. I'll show some examples. Say I have got an optocoupler IC. This is an integrated chip. It has got 6 terminals. So if you want to make any connections, you can just gently push this into one side lower bus of vertical buses. I'm going to insert it like this. Just you can easily plug in like this. So we can take out contacts from this side, 3 contacts, and another 3 contacts from that side. So they are not short circuiting anyone. I mean, they are not. None of them are short circuiting with any of the other contacts, right? They are independent. Similarly, you can go for bigger ones. You can go even for microcontrollers or any other thing. So any electronic component can be connected on this breadboard. The simplest. Let us say I want to glow an LED. This is my breadboard. This is my resistor, which is 2.2 kilo ohm resistance, and I have got an LED, light emitting diode. So how do I connect it? Usually, for making any collection like this LED, etc. So what I'll do is I'll draw a circuit diagram, the simplest. It needs a battery, plus minus, usually 9 volts or 5 volt is sufficient sometimes, a resistor, and LED. See, this is the symbol for LED. So light is being emitted from here. This is the positive, this is the negative, and this is the resistance. Here I am using a 2.2K. So how do I make the connections? Simplest. First, you start from the battery's positive. Battery's positive is coming to 2.2K. Usually, positive of the battery is connected always on the top, negative of the battery is connected at the bottom. So two buses are there, you can use any one of them here for negative. Same thing for positive, you can use any one of them on the top. So I'll use the top one. So I want to join, I assume that this is the VCC, or I mean, this is the positive. I want to join the resistor here. So from positive I have started, it is coming to 2.2K. The other end of the 2.2K, that is this one. Please don't get confused. You have started a journey from here. You have come, you have crossed the resistor, you have come to the other side. This is the other one. And from here, it is directly going to the LED. LED is positive side. Of course, you may not notice what is positive and negatives. Generally, electronics convention is if it is a fresh component which is unused or trimmed, the longer lead represents the positive, the shorter lead represents the negative. You can see little longer lead for positive, other side is negative. So I want to join this positive lead to this resistor. So these two terminals must be joined. How do I? Well, I can bend this and I can use any of the vertical bus. I'm using the lower side vertical bus. If you dislike, you can use the even top one, but this one is more preferred. Why? Because I want to join this LED to ground also. You can see that. So I want to join this terminal with positive of the LED. So let me join it in a same bus. See, I have connected it here and four more holes are left over. So I can insert this LED in any one of the hole, but the lower one is most convenient for me. You can understand this, why it is convenient for me. So I have inserted the LED into the lower one. Now, if you take a look at this, the other side of the LED, you have traveled from here, reached this end, and from there, it is going to the negative. I said negative is usually connected at the bottom. So if I insert the LED little lower, I can bend it little in order to complete the circuit. So this circuit is now complete. And if I want to see whether my LED is glowing or not, I need a regulated power supply, right? So I'll show that part also. Well, I have a 12-volt battery and I have got two jumper wires, right? So these jumper wires, of course, for color separation sake, I'll be using two different colors. I have a violet color and a white color wires. So I'll choose this white as positive VCC or plus V. So I'll insert this into this bus. Please observe, I'm inserting it here. If you dislike, you need not insert here. You can even insert here also. So the entire bus is connected. So this is my positive. And similarly, the other one, which is my violet color, I am inserting it here. So I can insert anywhere in the upper bus of the lower side. I have inserted here. So this is my negative, this is my positive. You can clearly see the battery is having red positive, black negative. So I'll try to join this to here. Poor contacts, please bear with me. And coming to the other one, this is my negative. See, it's a blue LED, it's glowing, right? So just like that, you can connect any circuit. As I'm shooting here, I'm using the battery. Instead of this, I can even use the regulated power supply. So in this way, you can make any electrical circuit. Let us suppose that you're using transistors. The very famous example of your transistor, which you extensively use in your lab, is this smaller one. This is BC547. I don't know how far you can say this. This is called BC547. So it comes out with the three leads. So these three leads are breadboard friendly. So without twisting them, you can actually push them into three buses. This is one example. So you can just plug it in. It goes this way. So you can make electrical contacts very easily like this. And you can make the rest of the connections. You can connect it to resistors, capacitors, power supplies. So many things you can do it, right? Okay, with this, I conclude the examples. See, the device which I am showing you may be different from the device which you have used in the regular laboratory, but most of them they are similar. So here you have got a dial. This dial can be turned in any direction in order to perform a specific task. So usually you can measure voltage both AC and DC. You can measure current both AC and DC. You can measure the resistance, capacitance, and even you can measure the HFE, the current gain of a transistor with the help of this particular device, right? You can check the continuity also. So in this device, I can tell you what are the various things. So you can clearly see here there is a V dash dash. So this actually represents the DC voltage. So with the help of this particular device, you can actually measure the DC voltage in various ranges. This is 200 millivolt, 2 volt, 20 volt, and 200 volts, also even 1000 volts. You can go up to this particular range. And similarly, there is another V at the bottom. You can see here there is a V tilde. This tilde symbol indicates that this is AC. So you can measure the AC voltage starting from 200 milliamps, 2 milliamps, you can measure the voltage starting from 2 volts, 20 volts, 200 volts, 750 volts, etc. So this is for AC measurement. And remember, if the range is marked as 200 volts, it means you can measure up to a maximum value of 200 volts. And similarly, if it is marked as 20, this is up to 20. Then you may have a doubt, why can't we measure all voltages with 750 volts? The problem is, if you go to lower range, there the resolution will be better, and if you retain yourself to larger range, the accuracy will be poor. Let us say if you want to weigh gold with the help of a rough balance available in a simple market, grocery market, that won't be accurate, right? So if you want to make sensitive measurements, then you should go for the appropriate range. Similarly, you can measure the ohm resistance here, this side, and there is a diode symbol as well as beeper sound symbol, which indicates the diode testing as well as the continuity testing mode. Similarly, F represents the farad, A represents the amperage, right? So these are the various functions which you can measure with the help of this multimeter. So these are the two probes. So the red color probe is always positive, black color probe is always negative. Let us say you want to measure DC voltage, because in this lab we are going to use only direct current. So DC voltages are measured by putting the dial this way, and usually the voltage will be up to 20 volts, not more than 20. So keep it in 20 volt range, then you can perform the things. So the value which is shown by here is a 0 0, means there is no voltage. So the potential difference between the two leads is actually 0. Okay, start building the charging circuit, charging of a capacitor. So let me first turn on the power supply. So here I am going to feed 12 volts power. So this 12 volt power is coming from the positive and negative terminals of this. You can see this red one is the positive, black one is the negative. So our yellow wire, which is here, our yellow wire here is the positive. So usually positive terminal is connected in the top bus. So let me show you the connections on the breadboard. So this yellow wire is actually representing the positive terminal. So I am going to insert it in the top bus. So this is my power bus. And similarly, I have got the green wire, which is representing actually the negative. So negative should be connected here in the lower bus. So I am connecting here. If you dislike, you can still connect it even here. There also connections will be done, but everyone must be connected in this bus. Or if you connect it here, then everyone should be connected here for ground bus. So this is my ground and this is my positive. So please keep in mind which bus you are using. Now coming to the connections. Generally, if you look at the circuit diagram, so it always starts from the positive of the power supply. In the charging part, we are going to use a resistor. So this is the resistance. Please take a look at it. Let me try to zoom it. It is a 56 kilo ohm resistor. So I think it is clear to you now. So this 56 kilo ohm resistor should be connected to the power supply. So one end of this I am going to insert in this bus. Sorry, the top one. Okay. So positive of the power supply connected to the resistor. Now other end of the resistor goes to the capacitor. So here I am using a 2200 microfarad capacitor with a 35 volt rating, Keltron make, right? So this 2200 microfarad is my C, and of course it is having a negative patch here. This is my negative, and other side will be automatically positive. as it is a new capacitor, untrimmed capacitor, you can see the positive lead is longer, negative lead is a little shorter, right? Okay, so in the circuit diagram, actually the resistor's one end is going to the positive of the capacitor. So these two leads must be joined. So how can I join? Well, I can join it in any vertical bus. So I'm going to insert this particular one in the nearby vertical bus. So I'm using this one. I'm using this particular vertical connection, right? I'm preferring this one because my capacitor negative terminal will ultimately go into the ground and positive terminal must be placed somewhere here. If at all I insert it here, it is not possible for me to bend the leads of the capacitor this long. Resistor is relatively longer, whereas capacitor leads are not that longer, and frequent bending of capacitor leads may damage the capacitor, right? So I'm going to insert this, I mean the capacitor is positive in the vertical bus. See here, I have got four holes, so I can insert in any one of them. So I prefer the lower one. This is the easiest one, right? So I have inserted it. Now you can see here, this terminal is now idle. And the last one, that is the negative of the capacitor, actually in the circuit diagram goes to the ground. Ground means negative of the power supply. So this is the ground bus. See, I said I have used the top one. Then I should use this one. Instead, if I use this bus, the lowermost one, yes, then I must change the capacitor also to that bus. I hope it is clear to you now, right? So this way we can connect the charging of the circuit. Now let's come to the multimeter. So this multimeter has got two probes, as I already mentioned, and for simplicity, I have joined two wires to make it breadboard friendly. Generally, two probes will be there. These probes will have protruding pointing ends. Generally, you have to hold them there. But as you are doing the experiment, you don't have, you don't have hands to hold two simultaneously and note down the readings. So I have attached two wires, and this is the positive red one, and this is the negative. Generally, if you want to measure the voltage, always you measure it with respect to ground. Ground means zero. So I am going to insert, see once again, earlier I have mentioned, so in whichever bus you are choosing ground, in that bus only you have to insert this. So if you choose the upper one, right, then you have to insert all these leads in that. It depends on you. So it is my negative. Now, as I want to measure the voltage, the positive probe must go to the capacitor resistor joining junction. So anywhere in this, right? So now the capacitor's voltage is read by this multimeter. Let me switch on and go to the 20 volt range because 20 volts DC is my appropriate range. You can easily notice that it is raising. It is going to 6.4, 6.5 like that. And I have given the power supply's voltage as 12 volts. So the charging is going to get saturated at around 12 volts, right? So if actually I have missed the readings, normally I should start from zero. So capacitor voltage zero. From there, I have to start counting of time as well as I have to note down the voltage. So first of all, I have to make the voltage across the capacitor to zero. How can I make it? Well, you have the two probes, na? So without removing the wires, just try to short the two probes. So I'm simply touching the two probes one with other. I hope you can see this. Just I'm shorting it. Now take a look at the reading. So as long as I hold the two wires shorted, it remains at zero. The moment when I release it, see the charging is happening. So once again I short this, see it comes to zero. The moment when I hold it together, it is going to read zero. And the moment when I release it, it starts charging. Okay, like this, you have to note down the time versus voltage relationship. How can you do this? Well, you need a stop clock. As I don't have the stop clock readily available here, I'll use the mobile as the stop clock. I'm trying to use a mobile stop clock, and first of all, I will try to make the voltage across this capacitor to read zero. I hope it is clear to you now. Yes. So first of all, I'll try to short the two leads. The moment when I short them, you can see the voltage read by the multimeter is 0, and by releasing this probe, simultaneously I'll switch on the stop clock. You can see this. So 0 0 time 0, excuse me. So now the time is 0 as well as the voltage is also 0. I'll release this and simultaneously switch on. Sorry, stop clock. Okay, now it is ready. Ready. Start. So gradually it is increasing with the time it is changing. So at every 10 seconds I am going to read the voltage. So at 10 it is 1.0. Similarly at 20 I am going to note down. So at 20 yes, it is going to be 1.82. Similarly at 30 I am going to read. I have to note down at 30 2.6. Similarly at 40 I am going to note down the value at 40. Right, it's 3.3, 3.31. Just like that, I will go for 50 also. At 50, I'll note down the reading. At 50, it is 3.98. And similarly, at 60, I'm going to write down. At 60, it is 4.6. At 60, 4.6. Just like that, at 70, means 1 minute and 10 seconds. Yes, it is 5.16. Similarly, at 20 seconds, that is 80. At 80 seconds, I'm going to calculate, yes, 5.66, 5.66. And similarly, at 90 seconds, I'm going to write down at 90 means at 30, 90, yes, 6.14, 6.14. Like that, I'll proceed with the readings until at least 90% of the voltage is reached. See, 12 volts I have given. So 90% of 12 means something around 10 or 11 volts. So for I mean whenever it reaches 10 to 11 volts, there I can stop. 11 is more preferred, 1 volt less than the maximum value. So until 11, you keep on noting down the readings at every 10 seconds. So when you tabulate the readings, you are going to have uh, a graph, which is voltage versus time, which we have described in theory. This is about charging process. Now we'll do the same thing for discharging process also. Let me pause this. Okay, it's now reaching to 8 point something. Anyway, we don't bother about this. Let me show you the discharging process. See, the circuit is same as the previous one, except one change. We'll remove the positive of power supply. Now it is not connected anymore. Now we'll just break this connection from here and we'll try to join it to ground. That shows the discharging. You can see the reading of multimeter, it is slowly decreasing. 8.72 was there, now it is showing 8.71. And if you leave it for some more time, it is going to give you 8.7. Like that, it is discharging. See, the capacitor is now discharging in air. Don't think that it is discharging through resistor. We want to make it discharge through the resistor. So just pick it up, just make a twist and bring it to the ground. Please observe, I am putting back in the ground. Ground means the lowest lead, lowest bus. Here I have connected it that way. Please pay attention here. Now see, the resistance is allowing it to decay fast. I hope it is clear to you. Now the resistor has been brought to the lower bus. Fine. But I don't want to study the experiment with 7 volts. Instead, what I will do is I'll take this power supply. Still, my power supply is on. You can see the readings 12 volt. I will simply connect this terminal to the resistor capacitor joining point here. See, the moment when I touch it, observe in the multimeter, it is now showing 12.16. Means the power supply voltage, though it is showing 12.0, it is not 12.0, it is actually 12.16. See, the moment when I release this, please observe. Now I'm holding it. I don't know whether you are able to see. Yeah, now it is clear. See, the moment when I release this, the capacitance capacitor starts decreasing. I mean, it starts discharging. Okay, so what you have to do is take the stop clock once again. Just try to hold it. I mean, I'm actually trying to hold it at 12 volts. I hope you can see now it's at 12.16. Simultaneously switch on the stop clock and release it. Now I'm going to do, just a minute. Now I'm going to do this. So ready, 1, 2, 3, go. So we have started with 12.15 at every 10 seconds. So at 0 it is 12.15. Now it is at 10, 11.18. At 10, 11.18. Similarly at 20, what is the voltage? I'm approaching 20. Now 10.38. So 10.38 at 20, like that at 30. What is the voltage? I'm going to approach 30. So at 30, it shows 9.60. 9.60. Just like that, you proceed up to some time. Sorry, stopwatch. So just like that, you proceed for every 10 seconds and note down the readings until it drops to about 2 volts because we have started at 12 volt. Na? So at 12, you will have very fast decay, and as you approach to below 4, the rate will be very slower and hardly you may reach up to 2 volts. Anyway, through charging process, you can guess up to what time you have to take. Just like that, in the discharging also, you can follow the same steps. Okay, that is going to complete the charging and discharging process, and you will have two curves using which you can calculate